Meanwhile, I see a lot of counselors join in. Good evening, everyone. Would be nice to have a couple of cameras on.
Good evening, Thomas.
Good evening, Thomas.
Hi,
Good
Vinny.
evening, Lalita.
Nice to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah,
Good evening, everyone.
Hi,
good
Jyoti.
evening.
Very good evening, and we are good to go. The session is also live on YouTube now.
Right. Firstly, very good morning to Scott. Thank you for making time this early in the morning in your day.
Well, good
Uh,
morning. Yeah. Thank you. It's great.
and thank you also for keeping your word. I believe a couple of weeks ago we had another session with Scott where you had promised to do a session on AI, which is something that concerns all of us on a day-to-day basis. We get this question almost once every day, at least, if I'm not wrong,
Hmm.
on how will AI impact the careers of the future. And we often come to very different conclusions depending on who's asking the question too. So thank you very much for doing the session for us. And I guess Scott needs no introduction with our community anymore. It's been the third session with us. I guess all of you know Professor Scott from Boston University. Uh, so Scott, over to you. I guess you have sharing rights as well. Whenever
Hmm.
you're
All right. Well, let me get myself, let's get this set up here. Share my screen. Again, very excited. Let's see, where's my share button? There we go. Too many things in my way here. 1 second. Trying to get my full screen on, sorry.
yeah, no worries.
Where did my thing go here? Oh, it's because I'm not all the way up. There it is. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Yes, so we're going to talk about AI today, and I thought we would start. Let me just give you kind of a sense of the overview. It's pretty short in terms of agenda, but long in terms of content. Um, we're going to go through the challenges first, and then look at some opportunities around AI. I have a couple of resources that I'm going to be drawing from, and I put together a Google Doc that's going to have the presentation. It's going to have one of the readings. I'll try to get the other one in there too. And then it's also going to have just some activities of things that we talk through, just to have a little bit of some thoughts of things how we might go forward. And then we're really going to talk about implications for what we do in our practice with youth as part of that. So that'll be kind of the theme. But I thought we would start with just let's use the chat and what are the concerns? I know there's many of us have a lot of concerns, and I found that I really can't get started and talk about AI until we kind of put these out on the table, because they're all real concerns, and there's nothing we can really, I think we need to first just acknowledge them. Not much that we can do about them as necessarily right now, but let's acknowledge them, and then let's think about which ones might be most connected to the work we're doing with our youth. So if we want to use the chat for that, I'm going to actually stop the share so I can participate and see what's going on in the chat, and then we can have a little conversation with some of those. I certainly have a list which I'll go through after you've done your share. I've got a whole list of ones too that if we missed a few, we can add those in. So yeah, so start putting the chat in there. I know you all will have lots to say. So what are some of the anxieties, some of the fears, some of the concerns you're reading about? Um, there's a lot. Annie, you can throw some down there too, because I know you've got some. Not seeing any chat box yet. There we go. Lots of jobs. Thank you. Yep. Clean water. Thank you, Annie. Clean water usage, job displacement. Power supply, yes. Oh, that was interesting. Constraints. Thank you for the rising green. I want to go back up to the constraints for human inherent skills. That's going to be something we're going to talk about. I think we've got some ways around that, but thank you for sharing that. Yep. What are we going to do with students? How are we going to position ourselves with them? Green technologies, job losses and demand, right? Because there's as well, some things go away, some things are opening up. How do we position ourselves for them and help our students become aware of those? Loss of creativity, very interesting. We'll talk about that too. The AI job opportunities. What is the ENGG areas? Is that engineering? Yeah, so what engineering areas will be impacted? Just what are the future jobs? Yeah, the whole thing. Oh, there goes Annie again. Skill development to articulate thoughts. You know, especially our students are saying, yeah, well, what if we're not thinking the way we used to anymore? Right? Is it taking that away? And it came up in class this week when I was talking with my students about it as well. How do we deal with students using AI responsibly, responsibly, ethically? And then, yeah, you're right. Genuine resume creation and learning that we're going to come through those. It's great. Global controlling body organizing negative effect. Yeah. So there's no guardrails, right? Who's regulating this? Uh-oh, Andy's got more. Okay. And then water usage for Andy. That's one that Andy we've talked a lot about. The water issue is certainly an important piece that's going on right now. Um, Yep. How is it in opposition to our sustainability and values with that? Yeah. Which are the positively impacted areas? Yeah. So what are some areas where it can have a positive view as well? So we'll look through this. Well, that's a great start. So let me go back to the slides. Thank you. Getting a lot of stuff on there. Um, so these are some of the questions that I came up with in kind of reviewing through some of these areas. And I've got actually a whole sheet in the Google folder that goes through more detailed questions for each of these topics. But I put some in bold that I thought might be related to the work we do as career professionals. So one of the areas that comes up is just if AI is so involved in things, what's our purpose? What's the human purpose? How are we doing emotionally if we're not feeling that the work we're doing has purpose and meaning? Can AI systems make fair and ethical decisions? There's a lot of challenge around. We have to make sure that because it knows something about the student, is it framing answers for that student versus another student, which could be reducing access to different information or, elevating some groups over others, so it can actually create more inequalities. And then this is a question you all brought up, or many of you brought up the idea of how is it transforming jobs, economic opportunities that might be there. What does it mean for future of education and learning? How we're learning. That was what Annie brought up. Is it going to replace how we're thinking about things and problem solving? How will humans remain the decision makers if we're letting AI be involved? That's always an interesting thought too. And then AI transforming creativity. That was brought up. Is it going to decrease our creativity? And then really the regulation issue. What is the kind of AI future we want to build? Really concerned about AI, managing drones and doing different things without people in control. It's like those futuristic movies that look horrible, in terms of AI taking over. So I think there's a lot of fears and a lot of anxieties and a lot of unanswered questions, for sure. So I wanted to get that on the table because I'm not saying we're going to solve those. I'm just saying that I want to acknowledge that yes, there are a lot of concerns, um, and just want to think through what we're going to be doing. Now, this organization here, IAEVG, it's the International Association for Educational and Vocational Guidance. So it's the European Union's, and it's more international, by the way. It's not just European Union, but it was formed out of the European Union, that really guides our career professional practice. And they just passed a year ago. They passed some ethical competency issues related to looking at AI as well. So they're feeling it's time to really understand the digital competence, have our own digital competencies, start to recognize how it can be used and used in an ethical, responsible way. So there is some need for us, at least professionally, to start looking at this. I know my own university has said that, we need to be leaning into AI, understanding how we can use it in classrooms, how our students can use it, because they need to learn how to use it as well. And we have faculty who are saying no. So I mean, we still have lots of resistance, certainly even at the education at higher ed as well. But this was what IAVG was looking at. Because technology is changing so quickly, we needing to figure out how we can use it in guidance, but also the impact it may have on our work. So it can be something that can enhance and improve, but yes, it can also be problematic. So anyway, so just saying that we're having this conversation in part because it's also an ethical responsibility for us to explore these things. Now, I mentioned I'm basing most of this talk on a couple of major reports that came out. This is the first one, Canaries in the Coal Mine, and it's taking a look at the impact of AI, especially on youth populations. And I know it's a US focused article, but it's a huge data set that I think we can at least look at, and we can certainly extrapolate whether some of the findings are relevant for India. But basically, they're looking at earnings records for 18 to 70-year-olds in the US. Huge amount of data. Okay. And what they're finding is, yeah, AI is disrupting the world of work in both negative and positive ways. Oops. Here's some of the areas that they're kind of looking at. So anything that can be automated, AI is performing it better and reducing the jobs that people would have had. But what we're going to do, and you're going to hear this theme throughout, which is the difference between automation and augmentation. Okay. So augmentation is where AI is now supplementing or supporting the work. We're basically problem solving or designing through AI as opposed to replacing the jobs. So it's designed, when it's augmentation, it's designed to make the work more efficient. So it could mean having fewer workers because we can do the work more quickly and in a more timely manner. But it does bring that's the area that we're going to be really focusing on, is how do we help youth learn how to engage in those kinds of opportunities that where AI is augmenting the work in a particular employment setting. Shifting skills, the AI complementary skills, there's a lot that has to happen. We need more creativity, not less. It's not taking creativity away. To use it well, creativity, judgment, literacy, there's a whole number of skills that's going to need to be important in that space. Let's see. It's going to be uneven effects, both in inequality and wage earning. So that's important. It's going to have uneven effects across countries. So the way it's impacting India is going to be different than the United States. So we need to be looking at those industries and really thinking through and being open to information that's going to help us understand the activities there. So let me pause. Any questions or clarifications as we're entering into this conversation? And I can't see the chat right now, so Thomas, you'll need to come off and if there's any questions.
Sure.
So remember I said that the big issue is automation versus augmentation. And that's something that we need to be focused on as we're trying to figure out how we're going to support youth in thinking about the world of work in an AI world. So this is a complicated, I apologize, it's a little more complicated than I wanted, but I wanted to show it to you. When it comes to augmented, okay, so when companies are using AI in an augmented way, that's where the orange is. Youth are not getting hired right out of college into those companies. And the reason they're not getting hired into those companies where they're relying on augmented AI is because they don't have context knowledge. They don't understand what the problems they're trying to solve. And the reason for that is they have book knowledge, but they don't have work-based learning knowledge. And so one of the themes that's going to come out of today's presentation is We have to double down now on getting youth access to the world of work earlier so they're getting the full context of what's happening, so that if the company is using augmented AI, they have more tools and an understanding and framing from which to use it. So it's not in augmented, it's not taking away the creativity or the thinking. It's actually demanding that you're critically examining and constructing what the solutions are that it's finding. And it really depends on a much more depth knowledge about the field, about the work, about the research theory, as well as the problems you're trying to solve. So this is data to support us saying that some youth are going to have challenges getting into those jobs. Whereas older adults that have more experience are able to navigate into it just fine. So that was what that was about. And positive sign, durable skills are skills that aren't going to be supplanted or replaced by AI. So our human skills are what we need to be leaning into. And we've had these conversations before, and we're going to continue those conversations. Why? Focusing on helping youth become aware of their personal qualities and the durable skills that they currently have. Those are the ones that they're going to lead with, and those are the ones that are going to help them stay employed. Lots of areas where these human skills predominate, right? We're not going to replace having a healthcare practitioner or a counselor. That doesn't mean that there won't be some chat bots to help facilitate, but you still need a human component in there. And those are the qualities that are coming in. Education and training. So there's a number of places where anywhere where there is a need for humans, it's going to happen. There's also a whole new rise of humans working with robots, right? So that's that augmented part, working with something that's trying to solve things. And so the human skills there become important as well. Okay. So here's the second one that I found. And Thomas, I found this after I showed you the slide deck. So this is all new for you. So here's another article that came out, and it's just taking a look at what the impact is of AI, this vanishing apprenticeship. So not so much that professions are getting eliminated, but it's changing how people can enter those professions. And so here's some examples, right? So where you had analysts working on problems, there's AI can do summaries very quickly, right? So when I'm getting ready for this presentation, I can have AI take that particular paper and say, give me the top points that's in there. And within 30 seconds, I have a summary that I can now digest and I can work with. Certain coding things. Absolutely. When we're doing thematic analyses, took us 6 months to do a thematic analysis of our federal policies around career development. AI did it in 5 minutes, and it was 10 times better than anything we had done for 6 months. Okay, so those are some examples of where the AI is definitely changing things. Now, we still had to digest it, we had to write it up, we had to do work with it, put it to our theory and all that, but at least the data we had was there for us to use in a more efficient manner. However, again, as we're starting to say, in order for youth to become ready, we need them to be engaged in more immersive work-based learning experiences. So they're going to need to have opportunities. But you too, can you not? If we could get more engagement in the world of work, civic engagement activities, volunteer activities, working as volunteers in businesses, apprenticeships, all of that, just kind of a full schedule starting with early middle school all the way through high school, I think is going to be critical. And the idea then is the depth of their domain knowledge is going to be more important than just the productivity. They have to have a good understanding of what it is that they're working with. And now the portfolio becomes important too. Sorry, I have a little cat that wants attention here. The portfolio will become a very important piece of this because that's what's going to showcase what they've learned and how they learn. And I'm going to go into more detail about that in a little bit. So just to keep that on. The ability to demonstrate human judgment is important. So students have to now demonstrate how they defined the problem that they're looking at. So AI may be involved in their solution, and you can see that, but that's the content. How did they define it? How did they decide what information to bring in? How are they evaluating what the AI says so they're not just taking it straight on? How are they interpreting those results? Making ethical, strategic choices, and adapting when something doesn't work. So how are they operating on this process? How are they co-constructing what is happening within the AI. That's the big piece. And what are they bringing to it that's shaping it and engaged with it? It's the ability to describe that and demonstrate those elements that I think is going to be an important piece to this whole area. But now something that we have to be able to do, and I don't have answers to these, by the way. I'm just showing you what we have to do as a profession. We got to understand the algorithms that are being used, right? So youth are going to be analyzed. We all are, right? When I go to apply for a job, there's 100 there's 100 of these coming in. They're going to get ranked through AI. So what are the key terms? What are the key ways in which that's happening? Um, they're inferring certain skill sets. How are they doing that? The performance analytics, what are they looking at? What are the details that they're looking at to indicate your readiness or the kind of worker you're going to be? So we have to be thinking about those portfolios because, again, remember I said that we did a thematic analysis with the federal policies. Well, they're doing thematic analyses on these portfolios and resumes. So how are those resumes and portfolios being constructed? I don't believe they necessarily need to be a one pager anymore because if they're using AI, they can do 20 pages and be able to analyze it as more quickly than they were when they were reading one page. But they are tagging those skills how do we make sure that the skills they're writing about are written in a language that gets picked up and are hitting on the key skills that they're looking for, things like that. And also we have to have the youth have to be able to translate that informal experience into skills. So as they're building out their personal qualities, how can they describe those in a way that a business community understands the value of? And we can do that. Those are things that we're working on when we talk about durable skills. So that's an area that we need more. I don't have the answers in terms of how all that's done. I'm just suggesting that these are critical things we need to be concerned about. Now, this is where I think a bigger issue is, right? Youth are basically saying, well, then what do I care about? If I can have a computer do everything, what am I here for? So identity, motivation, our families, as you know, are getting nervous about what's going to happen, where my child's going to go. So we have to be thinking, and this is where our career development strategy that we're using together is so critical because we're not just trying to help them decide what that path is. We're trying to help them build a strong identity. We're trying to help them build a sense of purpose, a sense of hope. And it's this positive youth development strategy that we're using that's going to help them discover what's meaningful and relevant to them. What contribution do they want to have in society? And we're trying to help them become more proactive, resilient, adaptable. So that's all about human agency. And so now what we're building then is an individual who's going to be able to navigate, right, with an eye towards sustainable impact, the kind of effects they want to have in improving the quality of the world. So those are kind of the ways forward, and youth are resonating to this. And I think that's in a way that we can be positioning youth in an AI world to take advantage of opportunities, but also keep the focus on their own identity and purpose as they're moving forward. Sounds big, but I'm really feeling that I think that's exactly what we are doing, and I do honestly believe it can have an impact in helping them prepare for that AI world. Any thoughts or questions or comments on that? Was it a good speech? I don't know. It felt good.
So we'll
Any
pause for a few
chats?
questions. Uh, no, I can't see any questions.
All right, quiet today.
Yep.
I thought we would have a much more lively. We had such a lively conversation last time. I thought for sure this was going to be a tough one to get through because we'd have so many questions or thoughts or ideas.
Maybe this is
Nothing?
reflective of all the concern we have right now about AI.
What's that?
Maybe this is reflective of all the concern we have about AI right now and all the confusions we have right
Yeah,
now. So,
I think that's the big piece. It's trying to figure out there's anxiety. So let's get down to the details of this and see if there's things. But I want to make sure these are resonating with, with helping kind of work through it. We have to be concerned about inequality. That's one of the big issues with AI. And I thought this was really interesting the way this came out. The English language advantage, kind of elite universities, branding and how they're going to be involved, access to AI tools. Urban opportunities are going to be stronger than rural and suburban. I think the tiered, when you look at your communities within India and the different tiers, that we're going to have to be concerned about that. Certainly, we talk about the private versus public school in terms of who's getting access to what. Um, so we as counselors then we need to be making sure all of our students are getting access to this AI literacy. They're all getting a chance to develop it. I like this idea of normalizing non-elite pathways, which means how can we help look for occupational pathways that are not the formal or the only um, high prestige? What are the full range so that you can see different things that might be possible? And then the durable skills becomes really important. Now, this aspiration misalignment is always an issue in that students aren't clear that they want to be a doctor, but they don't realize how much education's involved or what education's involved. That we have to help them align the skills and the training pathways, training and education pathways that are aligned with their aspirations. And it's going to be really important that we continue doing that and doubling down on that. So it's something that as we do planning, once they get their goals and we're doing the planning, we really need to make sure they're clear. One of the ways that they can address that is by getting access to employers, mentors who can talk to them about what's important. We just had we had an alumni panel for our counseling program, and it's fantastic to have them talk about what is it that you would have liked to have learned or should have, thought about before you came in, to the job. And so it gives them a chance to see what they're learning or what opportunities they have currently that's most important for that future, because you've got people now that are in that future, right? And it can talk about what they've learned through that. So this is always an issue for employers. They're always concerned that students are coming in without the right skills or the skills that match exactly with the jobs. But there's pretty good, strong data emerging that the more contact they have with employers, the tighter that fit is, that they're actually graduating with the skills that are most relevant to the position. And I don't know, by the way, that they're graduating with different skills. I think they're able to articulate the skills that they have better, and that they're recognizing how those skills align with that particular job. So it is all about helping building their capacity, and these are part of the durable skills piece.
So there's one question from Smith, which is what kind of skills become more relevant, and to an extension to what kind of durable skills do you want to look at more specifically?
Yeah, I agree. Let's see if we've got that coming up here. Oh, look at that. Beautifully done. Yeah, nice job. So here's some, right? So we know that AI is great for editing. It's great. I mean, if they're not using it for editing, it takes so much longer to get the papers done. They come off much more polished, much more professional, but the content of what's there is something that has to come in, right? So, so it's not going to really replace our ethical judgment, right? We're not just stealing things or we're not just copying things straight out. I interviewed a student the other day, and they weren't looking at me; they were looking at the screen next to them, and it was like they were reading off an AI thing every question. And it was like, yeah, no, that's not. We're not having a conversation here. You're just reading out something. It's a little odd. So the kind of the navigation of how they're navigating through the information and navigating different pieces is something that's not going to replace, and the ability for youth to understand there's going to be ambiguity and they need to learn to work through that ambiguity is really important. I think that the the other skills is basically the cultural nuances, understanding the language and how they're framing things is really important. So these are a few things. I also think the other durable skills that are going to be that this is for the algorithm proof part of it, but for the job proofing part of it, we're really getting back to that complex communication skills, being able to work with people from different backgrounds, being able to have enough cultural understanding to be able to understand the full complexity of meaning and different ways in which we can understand situations and problems is huge, because that's going to help problem solve and work within the teams. Being able to do teamwork in an authentic way becomes a really important skill set. So having youth practicing as leaders, and not all leaders are controlling. Some leaders are the listeners, some leaders are the organizers, some leaders are the behind the scenes, helping everyone stay together and connect. There's lots of ways we can talk about leadership skills, but within an organization, those durable human skills are critical for the organization to thrive, right? So we can really be leaning into some of those. And then I'm also going to focus on creativity, and I'm going to focus on entrepreneurship, and we'll get to those things in a moment, because I think that those are some of the things that can really help our youth find their way forward. We, though, have more things to learn. This hallucination risk, bias in labor market information. We need to be clear, is the information they're getting access to accurate? The projections, where is it coming from? And can we make sure that, is there any additional information that can help us? Not being so overconfident in the recommendations, and just thinking through that. Now, I see the chat had one more. Is there another question in there that we need to respond to?
Yeah, there was one question from Satish. Can AI reduce human discretion in decision making? So I guess what he meant was, would AI or regular use of AI reduce our own decision making skills? Did I
Reduce
understand your
our
question
decision-making
correctly?
skills.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so. Here's the thing, though. So
Sir,
let me
excuse
just,
me, based on the
yeah.
vital precious our experiences, because human gain some experience during the course of time, during the course of many years,
Mhm,
what he has gained or what he has lost. So
mhm.
on that basis, some decisions we take normally. So can AI can give the, because AI may not have that ready knowledge. So can AI reduce that option? That I want to ask. Thank you.
So you're talking about decision making and asking whether the system itself is able to provide good decisions, or that as humans it takes
Correct,
time
because
to.
AI can give options that in the particular
Yes.
scenario, you go A, B, C, D, E.
Mhm.
But based on the practical experiences, what he has particular that human has gained, so
Yeah,
that option may not be available in that A, B, C, D, E. That I was
that's right.
just.
That's right. And that's the augmented AI that I'm talking about, where it has to be a construction. So in my own experience, when I'm working within the AI kind of frame and I'm trying to build, say, a curriculum, I'm using it's already built in what I do. It's got my articles, it's got my theory, all of that's built in. So it knows how I think about the situation. I'll bring in a new reading and say, here, I want to build something off of that. And now it's trying to frame it within that, but it's not always accurate. And then I'm continuously coming back to it to say, okay, you're missing it. What I'm wanting to focus on is this other way, of understanding it. And then it frames it within that piece. So it's a design and development phase as opposed to just letting AI do it. Now, just this last week, I had a professor say, hey, Scott, we want to do a big research project on autonomous mathematics. Well, just to let you know, I don't know what that means at all. So I have to go to the AI and say, hey, what is autonomous mathematics, right? And then it's bringing in things. I said, well, that's not enough. What are the leading authors? What are the leading pieces that I can now go to, which I did, to start getting some information on it. And in time, it constructed a better understanding, a richer understanding. So then when I met with the faculty about it, I was more on target and could then enter the conversation with them because I had just enough knowledge and information to be able to access what the conceptual frames were. And then they were looking at it in terms of the work we do that could be additive value to what they were doing. So again, it's a conversation that's happening, and it really is dependent on us to not just let the system dictate, but we have to be operating in a more agentic way around that. And that's when you saw earlier, it said, what are the decision-making rules? What are you doing to frame and interpret and all of that that goes on? And everybody came off on camera. So I think we got a lot of people with some questions or comments.
Yep. I think there's one more question from Apurva, which is, yeah, is there a specific age children should be kept away from AI to ensure that it doesn't hinder with their own pragmatic development?
Look, when probably even when your parents were born, yep, they wanted to keep you away from the television because they knew that if you started watching it, you were going to become, it was going to destroy your lives. We're always afraid of the latest technologies. Every generation is hesitant and scary. This generation that we have right now has always grown up with technology. It's in their blood. It's how they think. They're on iPads when they can't, when they're just starting to crawl and they're on iPads and they're problem solving. So their brains are wired naturally in this space. So I think I don't know, I don't have an answer to that. I'm not worried about the neuropsychology involved in the wiring of it. They're wired differently. They're going to be thinking differently. They're going to be problem solving differently. So these are their tools. We had a calculator once. When the calculator came out, nobody's going to do math anymore because we have a calculator. Well, it was a tool, right? So I enter it with the idea that we're always afraid of the next piece, and as we get older, we're always concerned that the next generation isn't going to be doing anything well. And it started when Socrates and Plato started talking. All they did was complain about the next generation. They don't think anymore. So it's been sort of this long process of always being afraid. In the United States, when jazz came out, that was going to destroy the whole culture. So I just saying that it's hard for me to separate the anxiety from the facts because I don't know what the facts are yet in terms of that, and I don't know that I have an age in what's going on because these children are in the technology world from the beginning. So, and everything we're doing right now, even when we go to do any search on the internet now, AI is always involved. So, yeah, we're kind of surrounded and immersed in it. Sorry, I don't have a great answer to it, but that's just kind of my initial reaction. Other questions? Varsha, did you have something you wanted to talk about? I saw you had questions earlier, I thought.
So Shweta has a question, which is, given that AI is taking away entry-level jobs, how do we help our students understand the scenario without making it sound depressing?
Yeah. I think that this is where we have to be starting to look at the ways in which they can find their own pathway. So you see me putting micro businesses down now, the entrepreneurship. The entry level jobs were pretty boring. I don't know if you remember your first job. Mine was cutting up fish in a fish restaurant. That was my entry level job. I'm not really wanting to do that anymore. I mean, it was never fun then. I don't know that it's fun now. And I'm sure there were great skills I was getting, and it's certainly smelling and how to clean my hands was part of what I learned. But I don't know that all the entry level jobs are most meaningful for youth. They're most exciting. Certainly, they have to do it if they need to get funding and money and things like that. So can we find ways to help you think about the kinds of jobs they're looking for and want to do and start creating their own way forward, right? And I think that civic engagement activities, micro businesses, helping them work within business to see what the opportunities are that are there, and then begin the learning pathways to be able to enter those is a way that we can help youth navigate differently. So finding meaning by recognizing what's currently available, but also creativity to solve problems, find new occupational pathways, right? Creating their own occupational pathways to address certain things. So there's a lot of things that have to be done in this world of work. So that's how I'm approaching it. Let's use the natural creativity our youth have. Let's build that and see if they can begin some micro businesses. I mean, we've got kids that are out walking people's animals, right? Taking care of them is a small micro business. That's fantastic. That's an entry level job in many ways, right? But it's one they're doing on their own and creating their own credibility in doing that. So that's kind of my answer to that. I'm not sure that I think we have to be keeping an eye on what these might be, but we also need to keep an eye on the new opportunities and then trying to chart that pathway to enter those new opportunities. Is there another question in there?
No, Scott, not that I can see
We're
right
good?
now. Yeah.
Okay. So I keep hitting on this, that we really need to be thinking about the ways we can leverage some of these things. So what are implications for us? So occupations and tasks are going to change as you were just saying. Some are going away, but in some places the tasks just keep changing. There's going to be, I put endless. There's probably going to be a number of job and career changes for individuals, even more so and that could be because economies are changing, or it could be that there's new opportunities coming up. The linearity of the ladders that we used to have, with unions and other kinds of things, are going away in many parts of the world. So with those disappearing, people have to be keeping their eyes open to what new opportunities might be around them. So as career professionals, we really need to hammer down on these. These are the durable skills that we want to have students come away with. Adaptability. Can we demonstrate adaptability? And when we're looking at their portfolio, is it clear that they've demonstrated the ability to adapt to changing circumstances? Could be within projects they're working on and they've had to change it, and can they deal with that? The proactivity, so they're not waiting for someone to tell them what to do, but they're actually taking charge of activities and taking charge of their own learning. Um, the comfort with ambiguity is huge. They need to be able to learn, and our parents, of course, need to learn how to be comfortable with ambiguity as well. And then the awareness of the transferability of their skills. So they have a skill set. How can those skills be applied in different occupational pathways? Becomes really critical and important, and thinking through those. So that's some of the ways in which I think we can be helping students get ready for an AI type of world. Any thoughts on that or questions?
So I think one more question that's come in from Smith, which is, uh, how do we help prepare students for the fact that careers that exist today might not exist in 5 years?
Yeah, exactly. And that's going back to that adaptability, the transferability of skills that they're going to need if we can build a student who's proactive, adaptable, and resilient, right? Our aim is to support them in taking advantage of new opportunities and having always, using our selection optimization compensation model, they're always holding on to three goals. They're always thinking about other alternative things they could be doing, and they're looking for ways to develop the skills to have that as a backup plan so that they're not just focused on one thing at a time. We want them focused on three things, always having three goals. So that adaptability and the ability to have a backup when something doesn't go right or that something doesn't work out is really critical. And I give the story of, in the auto factories, there was a woman in Wisconsin who recognized that there was always the threat of shutdown. There was always the threat that they were going to be taken out. And so they went and got their law degree. And so they kept working because it was a very good paying job in the auto factory. And then when the auto factory went out, they gave them a severance package. She already had her law degree, was ready to go, and she just transferred right into the law practice. So those are the kinds of things we need our youth to understand is they're not just focusing on one thing. They have multiple talents and there's multiple pathways with it. They're looking for different opportunities to build. Maybe it is deciding to become that entrepreneur when it's all over, right? Things like that. Or a consultant or other kinds of skill sets that they're developing. So it really is having more than one goal. It's not about decision making. It's about what am I able to do? What are the opportunities? What are the things I'm getting excited about? And that's where we come down to this piece here. What are the things that I find that gives me dignity, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, helps me feel that I'm adding something to the world here? What are those things that I can find? And let's come up with 2 to 3 of those that are there, and then begin planning towards how I might find occupations that are aligned with those. And that becomes the ball game. So that means they really are going to be able to kind of bounce through this crazy sets of the world of work as it goes up and down and things like that. The hardest part we have is location, I think. So AI and internet does give us a certain amount of ability to stay in one location and continue to work across, but not all jobs, especially the human ones, are going to allow us to do that. So there is a challenge when individuals are stuck in a location because the aim of the old labor market system said, well, people will just move to where there's new jobs. Well, the fact is they don't. They've got family, they've got other things. So having students and youth start to think through not only what are my options, but what are options that would allow me to stay within the region I'm living in? What are the different things I need to be able to do to be able to do that is an important consideration. Um, I see we're up to 14. So are there some other questions that came in on the chat?
Yep. There's one from Geeta that says, would it be correct to say that the core engineering branches, which she means, I guess, is chemical engineering, mechanical, will again become as relevant as computer science and information technology?
Without a doubt, it was always relevant, by the way. It's never gone away. But right now, engineering is so important because if you look at the sustainable development needs of our planet, so much of it is engineering and an engineering mind, right? What do engineers do? They solve problems. They think they figure out a problem and then they come up with solutions around it. That's the creativity that we're talking about. So whether it's focusing on water, whether it's focusing on electricity, or whether it's just focusing on human conditions, right? This is the kind of thinking that we're really needing. We need all of our students to kind of be engaging in. So yes, definitely believe that the engineering is a very critical if we're going to solve some of these major issues that we've got going forward.
There's another question that
Uh-huh.
it'd be difficult to convince students who are currently working in non-appropriate streams with regards to AI for future growth. Satish, did I understand your question correctly?
Sir, I wish to ask that suppose we know today a particular person is working in a job which may not be appropriate or may be redundant in his short span of time in future. So how
Yeah.
that transition, how we have to counsel or how we have to convince the parents, including that total that person, that you need to shift or you need to have some transition. That is my question.
Yeah, and my answer would be it's just getting them ready. I don't want to take them out of that position because they're gonna write it as long as they can. But they have two other goals. You know, they're working towards or they're developing or um, ready to engage in two other pathways. So that's why if they can hold on to three goals at the same time that they're working on, that first one could very well be in a very redundant space. And we're already telling them, by the way, let's write it out as long as it can, but we know at some point there could be a close, right? That may be closing down. So let's also be looking at those other two goals and continue building on that. So that's the adaptability that we're building in, but we're not taking away what they have in front of them or what their initial opportunity is, because they're going to learn a lot even in that redundant career. They're learning a lot of information. They're learning about themselves. They're learning about their skill sets. So we definitely want to encourage and support them in whatever the pathway is that they're selecting. They'll learn in time, right, that it's going to go away, and they'll learn it because it'll happen. But we've helped support them by helping them think more broadly about their opportunities and how the skills they're developing can now transfer into other areas that will be less redundant. So it's not so much that we're trying to block or even shuffle people into certain areas. We're just letting the youth drive the bus. They're the ones driving the direction, and we're helping them have more options so that when they get stuck, when there's a bus crash, whatever it might be happening, they can now pivot and move into something else because they see themselves as having much more value and skill sets than they might have thought otherwise.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
You know, and I use the same thing in the US all the time when they say, well, what happens when the student says they want to be a professional athlete or a professional singer? It's like, well, then let them go for it. But what are the two other goals, right? In time, they're going to realize whether they're going to make it or not. On the way, they could meet great people. There could be some social networking. There could be all kinds of things that can happen. And they're learning about themselves. That's what I want them. That's the planning, right? Let's evaluate it. Let's continue developing. What are the skill sets? All of those are important to transfer back over as well. But they always have two more other options that are there, so they're not stuck if and when it doesn't work out. And you know what? Sometimes it does work out. So again, I don't want to hold them back at all. Any other questions on that? So this is some of the implications. I was just kind of summarizing, actually, what we've already been talking about. So the idea of cultivating the durable skills, the creativity, critical thinking, communication, things like that. Supporting their AI literacy, really important. Multiple pathways to social mobility. And then, and because we're doing more of a positive youth development strategy for career development, not decision making, we're really focusing on helping them become proactive, adaptable, resilient young adults. And we really want that self-exploration, career exploration, and planning skills to be kind of the three big buckets that we're always working with them on. So our whole goal then is agency, purpose, future goals, and then they're going to be looking, you know, the issue with AI as well is it's going to help them look at some of these different labor market opportunities down the road. And that's kind of what we're doing with our work together. This kind of an individualized career plan is really designed to help youth, you know, figure out these pathways, and they will need AI to show them what possibilities might be happening, how their skills might transfer. This is the augmented discussion they're going to have. How is it that what they have and what they're about, how can they communicate what they have in a way that's going to be that employers are going to see as valuable? So there's a lot of construction around their identity, around their resumes, around their portfolios that's going to be critical to supporting them in demonstrating to the employment world that they've got the skills needed to be successful. Let's see where I want to go here. If there's another question, Thomas, I can take that. Is there another one in there?
Yeah, there was one by Rashmi ma'am, which was what about the humanities related careers, as these students are not very technically inclined and usually start more clerical roles.
Yeah,
Rashmi ma'am,
humanities are amazing. What's that? Is there more?
No, that's just that question. Yeah.
All right, so maybe can we come off mute and let's talk about that?
Rashmi ma'am, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah, so my question was that with AI, it's technical knowledge is required, and wherein the humanities students, they are not that much technically inclined. So what kind of courses they should pursue, first thing, so that they're able to get the jobs at the entry level, because most of the jobs for humanities are more clerical based,
Are
and,
more clerical based,
and
you said?
that AI is eliminating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
but remember, humanities is more than just that, though. Humanities is also philosophy. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of, I mean, when you have strong philosophy majors and then you add in things like graphic design, they become and other kinds of writing opportunities where they're either proofreading or working with different, helping consult around the writing pieces. There are some skill sets in the humanities that are really powerful and transferable. So I guess, and you're right, they're not necessarily focusing on technology, but maybe that's what we need to help them with in their planning. That combining their humanities interests and skills with some technology, how does that now create new employment opportunities? This is what I was told when I had a colleague who used to get all upset about philosophy majors in college, that they had no jobs. And every time I'd see him, he'd look in the paper. He goes, Scott, do you see any philosophy jobs here? And when I told that to a labor market expert, they said, that's what they said to me. They said, take that philosophy major, give them a graphic arts certification, and they're going to be worth $70,000 to $80,000 a year. So there's that, and so there is that ability, I think, for youth to discover how their humanities and their interest in humanities, the role it plays, the skills they're gaining out of that, and then look to combine it with something in the technology area or more just human-oriented world. What are those different pathways that would be necessary? So I don't have the answer to you on that, but I'm just describing the process that I think we can help youth go through, and using AI in that can help also brainstorm and think about what those options might look like.
because already the publishing department, people who are writers, the AI is affecting their careers.
Totally,
So
totally,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
No, absolutely. And that they're needing to shift, and there are some shifts taking place, right? And
yeah.
so it's helping humanities in that way think through how they're going to make that shift happen. And yeah, it's ambiguous. There's no doubt about it. So I'm just trying to suggest that we can step away from it and say, oh my gosh, there's no hope, or okay, let's double down. Here's my skills. What's the new innovation around that, right? What's the new? I mean, I've got people that are consulting now on how to self-publish, right? Because I don't need the publishing company necessarily, but I do need help, as a writer or as something. So there may be some new domains in support that people can use. AI does not create a very good manuscript, right? And you can see it when someone's just had it generated. It takes the qualities of the individual to really design and develop their storylines. And maybe with the humanities, there can be some skill sets that can go into supporting people around that. So I'm just suggesting that there's going to be definitely it's going to be a challenge, but let's help them find some new opportunities and new ways that they can push through.
Can you
I'm-
suggest some courses which these students can do?
Well, I think I think we want to make it dependent on where their interests and their skills are, right? What is the when I think about the sustainable development goals, what's the impact they want to have in this world? So if they're wanting to do writing, but writing to what end? Are they wanting to communicate are they wanting to communicate about some topic or about some area of interest? And then what I want them to be able to do is learn how to incorporate data to make a problem statement that people can resonate around so that they see, wow, we've got to solve something. And then using the writing skills and the creativity to make sure we have materials to use to help solve those problems. So I want to start with where their interests are in terms of addressing some of these big areas. And then they can explore the kinds of skills and the kinds of technologies that it would take to be able to participate in that. And by participating in that doesn't mean they're doing all of it. It's just what part of that problem can they solve? And I mean, it could be the web design. It could be how we're getting the word out. It's the Instagrams. I mean, there's so many different ways they can express and have an impact in this world. So I'm just wanting the youth, though, to be the ones guiding that. I don't think we have to have the answers. We have to have the questions. And then with those questions, the youth can begin discovering and looking for some of these new possibilities. And then when we find role models out there that are demonstrating that, we want to bring them in to talk with our youth and to hear their stories about how they're organizing themselves in this space. So I know it sounds nebulous, but that's the process I would be going through. I don't want to have the answers. I want to have the questions and I want to engage them and give them space for them to discover and to problem solve and think through the different solutions and opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
I know it's frustrating. I know we want to know solidly. Well, just give me one direction or whatever. I apologize, but that's really how I do it with that's how I operate is in that way. Let's discover it together.
Okay.
Now, this I think I've shown you this in the past, but I'm bringing it up again because we've been talking about durable skills. And why is this important? Because they've been written in words that employers look for. So when we're saying before the algorithms, a lot of what's in here are going to get picked up by those algorithms. So we're finding some language around durable skills that is immediately something youth can put into a resume and they can begin thinking about even in terms of their personal brand, which is nice. So I just bring it up again to showcase that. I've been talking a lot about the global goals. I think I've shown you the card sort. Have I shown this one before, Thomas? This
No, I
card
don't
sort
think-
piece? No? Okay. We'll get this up as well. This is from our colleagues in Switzerland. It's a cute little card sort that's the 17 developmental goals. The students look through which ones are they interested in. It just kind of helps them sort through a little bit. We've got some other activities that we're building as well that you'll get access to soon. But we're trying to think about how to help youth find a meaningful life. And to do that, these are the problems that are happening in your community that actually is a global issue. And so how can you begin thinking about how you might participate in addressing those? And that's where the creativity is going to be coming in. Okay. So the AI then, I'm closing down here, can be really helpful in helping youth expand their awareness of how their skills and talent relates to a broader world of work. Helping them define those personal brand statements in ways that are powerful and meaningful for them. And then as I'm going to keep putting in this entrepreneurial skills and really an entrepreneurial attitude that when they're looking at the world of work, they're looking for new things they can develop. And so if they're working to say, what can I add to my resume that's a skill, then we know they're being proactive and adaptable as they move forward. Let's see, I'm going to skip through that. And then I've got a little, just like a small draft that I'm not saying it's done yet, but I put it into the Google Doc for you to look at. But basically saying, how can we help students use AI to design a micro business? And by doing that, teaching them how to think about becoming more entrepreneurial in the work they're doing. So what's a community problem that needs to be addressed and having them think about it? They can then use AI to explore what potential business ideas there might be. They could kind of build a concept of a product, a solution. They can then go out and do research to see, is this a solution that people would pay for, that people find necessary and needing? So they're going through the steps of actually starting their own business, right? And we're using AI to support it, but what it's doing is it's facilitating their creativity, their problem solving, and the sense of agency. Because if they if they actually develop something that could have an economic opportunity for them, all the skills they're learning and the sense, the identity development that's happening that I can influence my life, I can influence my community it's transformative. It gives them a sense that I can, right? Once they have that I can, their aspirations for their future go way up. Because if I can achieve this, even on a small scale, what else can I begin to achieve? So I don't just look at the entrepreneur as helping them find a job. Although if they create a job and it hires people, and we had one example from Africa where the person figured out that the town was looking for wood all the time for the fires, and the kids were late to school, so he created a business that you had reusable stuff, and all of a sudden he's hiring 30 people from the community full time. He's got all these homes are being taken care of. That's awesome. I would love to have one in every community who's able to then do something that can be at that level. But what I'm also focusing on is each individual feeling that they have power and they can influence their lives. And that's all about health. It's about well-being. It's about decency. It's transformative. So that's the reason why I really focus on this kind of an activity. Let's see the future planning. Oh, and then we need to engage employers as well. So employers are doing augmented AI in their work. Let's learn about that. Let's get them to come in and talk with us. Let's talk to them about how we can design the education and the work-based learning to support our youth connecting with that, and let youth hear these conversations so they're understanding the value. Let's bring parents into here so they understand the value. So let's make it more of let's connect more closely with those employers, so we can really help them. And when the employers see that our students have talent, and they just need help and they need support and experience, then maybe they'll start opening up more work-based learning opportunities, right? Some summer programs and things that they can get more experiences in. And then it really becomes a community-wide effort, and that's where the civic engagement comes in as well, as we go forward. So that's all I got. But I'm here. Any more questions and things I can stay on for a little bit is fine too.
Sure, Scott. Meanwhile, I think there was one question. Shweta, if you could unmute yourself and ask. I think I missed your question last time. Shweta, are you there? All right. In the meanwhile, if there are any other questions from anyone, I guess we kind of addressed most of the questions here. And like I said, I'll also share these resource materials on group as well.
Yeah, let me see if I can do that. I think I have it here. I think I've opened up a drive for everyone. I'll add a couple more things to it, but this has.
You can share them with me.
I put it in here as well, but you can share as well.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
you should be able to open it up. It has the presentation, the concerns about AI. It's a much larger. Each of the questions has more detail. You've got the Aspen study that I was referring to today, and then that small little kind of draft of a micro business kind of curriculum. So just a few things, for that. And again, this is, we're learning together. So I'm sharing where I am in my head, but I'm still forming my thoughts on this. I'm still learning how to learn through this. Even getting ready for today was still some more learning on this. So it's still a very, I just want to say it's still ambiguous, and we just have to kind of rest with the ambiguity as if we can. So, but thank you for all taking the time, and thanks for asking for me to do this, because these are the important things that we really need to be thinking about. And my students appreciate it when I finally start agreeing that yes, there's a lot of things we have to be concerned about, because I get optimistic as my lead, but we do need to be also thinking about the issues and challenges.
All right.